Hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul TX141 Walsh, welcoming you to an all new World of Warships gameplay today on our channel. In this episode I'm staying out in the Tier 7 American aircraft carrier, known as the Ranger, in a Tier 7 Domination game on the map Fault Line. Joined by my good friend Z, the focus of today's gameplay will be on the concept of making mistakes as a carrier player, and how making mistakes in the long term of a given match can not only have a considerable impact on your ability to contribute to the game, but also the ability for your teammates to contribute to the game or their survivability, and have an overall impact on the outcome of the game. Now, whether it's going to be a case that you're going to see me throw today's game effectively based on the logic I've just applied, you'll have to wait and see. But that's what I'm building up to in my explanation effectively. That as a carrier player, your ability to contribute to the game is massive compared to the other ship classes when you look at the bigger picture. Not to say other ship classes are inferior in terms of their contribution, but I feel carrier players, over the experience I've had with carriers to date, really have that massive impact factor, and therefore they have the ability to send a game one way or the other, either towards the victory or way towards the loss. Now, in terms of my opening game plan, the logic I'm going to be taking is that I'm going to be looking towards Objective Bravo to start with, because I find that Bravo is the objective that destroyers will typically contest on this map due to its open nature, and once your team has it, it's a much harder objective to push and retake. Now, whilst this is going on, note what I'm doing with my carrier. I'm reversing it onto the back line of the map. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I can pull myself away from the front line, and therefore with my poor detectability by sea of 13.8 kilometers, I'm less likely to be spotted and give away my position straight away. I will be moving forward once my team started to push forward, but I'm just giving myself a bit of a buffer. I'm trying to get myself off the front line to start with, because I do consider the fact that the reload time on my aircraft is going to be long, and by pulling further back this is only going to exacerbate the overall effective reload time of getting my planes back to the carrier, reloading, taking off and getting back to the front line, but it's going to increase my survivability to start with, or at least conceal my overall position. Now, looking at Bravo, I'm constantly checking the minimap to see when it's starting to be taken, and it's just started to be taken, so what you'll see me do shortly is I'll start moving my squadrons all towards Bravo, keeping my fighters on the periphery between Alpha and Bravo, so that way I can provide support to my aircraft if needs be. Alternatively, if one of the carrier players decides to start attacking my guys on Alpha, i.e. our friendly teammates, we can go charging over there and try to strafe or bring down the bombers. I can see a squadron set already heading towards the very eastern edge of the map. That's most likely the Kaga's aircraft, like the Tier 7 Japanese premium carrier, so I'm only going to have to worry about the Ryujo for the time being. And sending my bomber squadrons over Bravo, I very shortly spot the Akatsuki, and we're going to try and manual drop them using our torpedo bomber squadron. Now, the idea behind this is twofold. Number one, perhaps I'll clip them with a torpedo or two. Number two, if I can force the Akatsuki to turn against my torpedo drop, what it means is that they'll be sailing on a straight line for a brief period of time, and it will assist my teammates down in the southeastern side of Bravo, our Nagato, our Nizao, and our Nelson, in being able to get clear shots on the Akatsuki for a limited period. As you can see, they tried to there, but they weren't too successful. And as the Akatsuki goes to smoke, I've already predicted they're going to try to go to smoke to hide themselves. I'm getting ready to manual drop the smoke based on their last known position, expecting them to slightly start to reverse, and I've counted for this in the manual drop, and I clip them with both sets of bombs, being able to pick up 2 fires in the process. And because those fires are going to stick, by the initial torpedo hit, knocking out the Akatsuki's engine by looks of things, or a key component at least, it means those fires are going to cause some bleed damage. They won't wipe the destroyer out, but they'll put it on roughly 1,000 health. I mean, that enemy destroyer's ability to contribute to the game is now severely restricted in the long haul. They can no longer be as audacious as they may have wanted to be at the start. Now, we can see a good number of bomber squadrons coming down from the north at this point, between Alpha and Bravo. It's the Ryujo's planes, and here I make my first mistake, I feel, and that is I do not use the strafe functionality effectively, and I start to lose aircraft in just tailing these bombers. And when I do go for the strafe, I come in too soon with the strafe, and it means I'm not able to rip apart what would have been 3 squadrons rather than 2. I had the Remnant Torpedo Bomber Squadron, the Dive Bomber Squadron, and now I latch onto the other Torpedo Bomber Squadron I should have picked off in the strafe. I mean, I'm losing effective time here with my fighters, and I'm also using up ammunition. Now, I have built my fighters for durability and ammo load, which means that I'm not losing too much ammunition here, but this is all time and ammo being used up that could be used later on, and perhaps it will have an influence. Now, looking at the minimap at this point, what we can see is the majority of the enemy team has gone charging towards Objective Charlie. Meanwhile, my team seems to split 50-50, a good chunk going to defend Charlie, a chunk going to attack Alpha, and in the middle nobody's really gone to contest Bravo, which means we have a difficulty now in that our team's being split and can be effectively encircled on either side of the map. Now what I'm hoping is perhaps one of our destroyers will go towards Bravo to take it, because we pushed the Akatsuki away, and if it's still there, it's got so little health now, its ability to be an effective gunboat, or at least go into a knife fight against the destroyer, is going to be practically eliminated. It will have to rely on getting torpedo hits or an ambush, or alternatively a detonation. In terms of what I can do for the time being, as I'm starting to move my carrier behind my teammates at Alpha, considering it to be the safer position, and I want to support this push and conclude it, I'm going to move my fighters up towards the shores to effectively put them in a position to spot the shores, hopefully spot the enemy Ryujo, who seems to be behind the landmass in grid square Charlie 4 I should say. I'm not reading the minimap properly there, and then use my fighters to attack the bomber squadrons that come in. But note the mistake I made earlier about using the strafe effectively. This is now going to be repeated. Now, a number of you at this point who are more experienced carrier players, I'd love your thoughts on where I should be using strafes to get rid of these squadrons faster, particularly as they start to close up together, such as the torpedo bomber squadron here and the dive bomber squadron behind, because I feel that whilst I am gradually bringing down these squadrons, I could be a lot more efficient. And in return, it means that whilst I'm going to cause the dive bombs here to spread out from the enemy dive bomber squadron, I then have to consider being latched into a fight against these enemy fighters. But I've already anticipated that I need to bring those fighters into the AA range of our knives out in order to limit the damage that can be done to my aircraft, which is why, as we'll see, the fighter squadron now goes down to a single fighter. I decide to strafe out to quickly hit the torpedo bomber squadron and completely take it out, losing a fighter in the process, but then this brings me onto the dive bomber squadron coming in, the final squadron, where here I use the remnant ammunition of my fighters to bring the squadron down. Again, I could have strafed, but by the looks of things, this is going to work out alright. We're not going to kill off the entire squadron, we'll run out of ammo just before we do so, but only one dive bomber makes it through. They do hit the knives out unfortunately, but do not do considerable damage or appear to set a fire. Now whilst this is all going on, looking at the minimap once again, we can see the enemy team is really starting to push through Charlie. It's taken a long period of time, and Charlie's the slowest push objective in my experience of fault line. It takes a long period of time to break through Charlie and get onto the other side and start pushing towards Bravo. My team are now looking towards Bravo. Our Minsk is taking it, which is a good sign, and there's an enemy shores that's still allowed to be alive all the way up in the north here, and that's becoming a bit of a problem to our team, or at least a distraction. And looking at the Ryujo, who's still sat behind the landmass in a grid square Charlie 4, we're going to try and help take them out using our dive bombers here, although I don't have my fighters available, which means this is going to hold up the situation. Now if I perhaps used my strafes more effectively, perhaps I'd used up my ammo a little bit faster, but then I could have gone for a much sooner reload and had my fighters ready to take on the enemy fighters the Ryujo or push them away. And I would have had my fighters ready to take out this torpedo bomber squadron, which is actually going to spell Z's doom. Because they use a manual drop, in order to push Z out of his smoke, he goes to turn against the torpedoes, and unfortunately he clips it on the bow. Very unfortunate there, but nonetheless we press on. So in getting my fighters ready now, I'll be able to get them into a position to support our friendly knives out. Unfortunately, I really feel as though at this point I'm losing, helping my team to actually lose ground on Alpha and being able to push forward. So in return, as I bring my bombers back, because I know I can't go against the Ryujo with their fighters being in play, I'm having to wait, and this is wasting effective time. But now that the fighters are taking off, we can get back in, while our independents also taking a crack at the Ryujo with their torpedo bomber squadron that's pretty much getting shredded. Now the fighters coming up, I know it's a race against time to get this side of the map closed down to look towards the push that's coming via Charlie over in the east, because yes, we've won this side of the map and we have the centre for now, and our team will start to build up the points rather rapidly, but we've got to look at the longer term game plan here. We're only, 8 minutes in, and there's a lot more distance in this game. Now going for the enemy carrier, we go for the manual drop, standard here to try and set some fires, but not only that, also try and do maximum damage that way. We only need a couple of quick hits. And here we managed to score a 18,000 damage drop combined across the two dive bomber squadrons to cripple the Ryujo, and I decided not to use my torpedo bombers to finish the target off. The idea behind this is our knives out should be able to finish off that Ryujo, and I'd rather use my torpedo bombers to go after another target. Now in retrospect, was this a good idea? Well, our knives out's about to finish it off, so yes, I personally think so. It saves us a bit of time on the reload. So I go to finish off the torpedo bomber squadron quickly, getting them out of the game, and now bring my torpedo bomber squadron down towards Bravo. Now in doing this we have a bit of a problem, which is the enemy shores is still alive, and whilst they're only on 2,000 health, the shores, as we've seen previously on this channel, is a very powerful kiting light cruiser. It's fast, it's got a very dangerous set of guns, 4 triple 152mm turrets, and what that means is that shores, especially with IFHE equipped, the tier 4 captain skill, can cause considerable damage to battleships and set fires as well that only bleed the health pool down. So we want to get rid of that shores. But herein lies the difficulty. Trying to manual drop a cruiser, it's not the easiest thing to do, and if that shores has defensive AA, which I expect them to have, it means that the job's only going to be harder. I'm going to potentially lose more planes, or alternatively just waste a lot more time in trying to take them out. Now what could I be doing here? I could be going for the enemy carrier because it hasn't been spotted at Charlie. That means it's probably all the way up in the northeastern corner of the map, I should say, approximately grid square Charlie 10. And by going for the manual drop here against the shores, I personally feel I'm starting to make some really big mistakes, and this is what's going to start costing our team the game. I didn't anticipate that the defensive A would be triggered as early by the shores captain, which means I've started to lose some aircraft. Now I've lost one plane now, I've now lost another plane. I'm down to 4, now I'm down to 3. I've lost 3 aircraft in that single incursion into the defensive AA screen, which means the shores have now got a much greater chance of surviving a manual drop or an auto drop that I made. And what their manoeuvrability, whilst it's not great, they've got considerable speed and a thin hull, albeit a very long one. They have the ability to dodge the manual drop if I'm not careful. Now that's stacking up. The Kaga meanwhile is just sat away from any AA screens of its teammates, and it doesn't appear to actually have its fighters in an ideal position to cover it. So I'm missing out on a glaring opportunity to try and get the enemy carrier weakened. And whilst I decide to start going over towards the Kaga, I then become obsessed with attacking the shores again, and this is where I'm going to start losing more effective ground in trying to help tip the balance in the favour of our team. Because in going for the shores, we go for the manual drop, we're coming around the other side of the ship, and as I go in, the shores starts to counter turn against my torpedo drop, meaning they're going to turn across it, in towards it, and unfortunately, we don't score a hit. And now we're going to be crippling the chances of our team, because that shores can continue to sail and continue to deal damage. It means I've now got to send my torpedo bombers back in order to get them reloaded, or alternatively lose the torpedo bombers and force a reload. Should have gone for the Kaga? Definitely. We've got dive bombers available, but we didn't combine them with our torpedo bombers to take out the enemy carrier or cripple it to the point whereby they'd have to pull their squadrons back, particularly their fighter squadrons, to defend the mothership, I defend the carrier. And what with the Kaga now moving towards Objective Charlie, this opportunity is fading. I'm still not seizing on it. I'm just going after the Kaga and trying to set it on fire. And I've really lost that opportunity, what with the shores now being much closer to the Kaga and being able to offer AA support. And this is a glaring issue. I've mentioned it a number of times, but I want to re-emphasise it, because even now I'm only starting to consider, yes, I should go for the Kaga and try to get it out of the game. But with my positioning all the way over in Alpha, the torpedo bomber reload is going to take a very long period of time on the relative scale. I've got my fighters in play to attack any aircraft that do come from the Kaga to attack my own bombers. And we're going for the manual drop here. Hopefully we'll pick up some considerable damage, and we can see what the Kaga's fighters just having finished off our Independence's planes. We are able to clip the rear end of one of their fighter squadrons, picking off 3 aircraft. But with the shores' AA also affecting the outcome of this match, we're going to lose our fighters and leave the Kaga on a couple of planes left within the fighter squadrons, with them having 2 squadrons against our 1. Albeit one squadron has been completely crippled, but those fighters are going to continue and they're going to win the contest here. And we've thrown away the ability to effectively get the enemy carrier's presence down for a long period of time, and in return I'm now going to lose my presence in the game for a considerable period of time. And so we can see how these mistakes are building up on a personal level, but how is this going to affect the way the game plays out? That's probably what you're wondering at this point. Well, think about it. I've been reloading my torpedo bombs now for what has been effectively, say, 2 minutes. We've still got longer to go because I've now got to bring the torpedo bombers into the centre of the map. That's an additional 30 seconds at least. Because we wasted so much time in going after the shores to no avail, what that's meant is the enemy aircraft carrier now has the ability to reset the situation. We have to start again in the pursuit of the carrier that was overexposed. With our dive bombers heading back as well, they weren't able to set any fires or anything along those lines. The Kaga does not have to worry about using up its damage control party consumable, but we didn't have the means to punish it. Which means they can now start focusing on our independence. They can start looking towards our Pensacola. They can start looking towards our 2 battleships up in the north, the Koenig and the Nassau. Meanwhile, my fighters are nowhere to be seen because they were eliminated in the squadron engagement a minute ago. Which means my fighters now to go defend our Koenig, for example, they're going to be approximately 2.5 minutes away on the timer. Which means the enemy Kaga now has the ability to really do massive damage and essentially take the momentum out of our team's favour. Because whilst our team is ahead by approximately 160 points currently, with the enemy team having the superior numbers and the ability to start pushing towards Bravo unchallenged, because our team are so heavily spread out and I'm not able to get effective damage across the map, well, I'm going for the Leon at this point, they really have nothing to stop their momentum as we lose 2 ships and the game now goes into the favour of the enemy team for a brief period of time as we manual drop the Leon and get a couple of nice hits here. And what the Leon, having already used their damage control party by the looks of things, and our 4 torpedo hits causing 2 floods, that Leon is going to be out of the game. Now this is a brief reprieve in the fact that we're able to take this battleship out of the game and tip the points balance back in our team's favour and start building up the points once again. But we've still got a big hill to climb because we've got 3 ships including our own carrier. Our 2 battleships are so far away from us, our fighters haven't even finished reloading yet, they're not even ready to take off. And look at the timer on the clock, 5 minutes to go. We need to now win by effectively keeping the points advantage because we don't have the ship advantage and the enemy team is gradually going to gain the objective advantage. But I need to get my fighters over towards our friendly battleships, and here I'm about to make another mistake in that I don't realise that until it's too late, because I start to become obsessed on the concept of how do I attack the enemy ships, because I'm worried about my own positioning. And because I'm cut off at Alpha, and really what I should be doing at this point, I should have rotated long ago up towards where the Ryujo was in the enemy team earlier, i.e. behind the mass in grid square Charlie 4, and hidden myself there. That way being close to the effective front line around Bravo, but also being in a position whereby the enemy team have to come off of the battle lines, I going from Bravo to Alpha, in order to come to me and waste their time. But I haven't thought about doing this. So now I've got my fighters in a position where I'm expecting the Kaga to go after me, when really the Kaga just needs to start going after our battleships, who are already going to be under pressure from the enemy battleships, so that means that it's all going to work in their favour, because the enemy battleships can grind down the damage control parties of our allies, and then they can start bringing in their torpedo bombers, or their unique drop pattern, in order to do considerable damage, set floods, and take ships out of the game. Now, in order to compensate for this, what I do try to do is try and take out the New York. My logic here being, well, that's going to be a quick kill. It's only on approximately 7,000 health. I only really need a couple of bombs from each squadron to hit, or a couple of fires to be set if the New York hasn't got their damage control party available, and that'll get them out of the game pretty quickly. In fact, we'll just go for the standard manual drop, and that should get the job done. Come charging in here, getting them well within the circle. Bish bash bosh, they're out of the game, and that tips the points advantage now 250 approximately in our team's favour. But watch now how it's going to flip what I was predicting earlier, that the enemy Kaga is able to operate freely. Because look where my fighters still are. I'm not providing my team with any assistance. I'm being selfish here and I'm not realising it. I'm spotting enemy ships at Bravo, but this isn't important. Because while there being 3 minutes left on the clock, that's ample time for the Kaga to take out both of our battleships. Because remember, Japanese carriers in general have much faster servicing times than American aircraft carriers. Meaning they're able to get their planes up faster, they're able to get off more strikes per game, and now I'm starting to notice this, but it's too late. Our Konig's already been in a position where they've been hit with torpedoes, and that's going to cause flooding. If they had their damage control party consumable available, they'll have had to use it, and it means that the second torpedo squadron that's now going in is going to essentially deliver the coup de grace. In the meantime, I'm trying to focus my bomber squadrons on getting enemy ships out of the game, and here I decide to manual drop a Pensacola, who appears to have a catapult fighter in play plus defensive AA. It's not going to work out, they're easily going to dodge what with the spread put onto the torpedo drop. We lose our Konig as predicted, the Kaga takes them out, and now they only need to take out our Nizao, who's on a very limited amount of health, in order to tip the balance back into their team's favour. Now fortunately, my fighters are on hand this time, and what of our Nizao being on a limited amount of health will hopefully be in a position to help support them and make sure they're not going to get eliminated by the enemy carrier. And what I'm going to say in the chat very shortly to our Nizao is go for C, because if they can take it, that means we're going to win by just building up enough points to get us across the finish line. While us having objective Alpha, the Pensacola on the enemy team is on its way, but it's a long way out on the relative scale. I decide to start moving down towards the southwestern corner of the map in order to conceal my position. And we can see that the enemy fighters are coming over to look at us, and because we're close to Nizao, it means that we don't have to worry too much about the fighters being able to get close because we can use our Nizao AA screen. But it looks like the enemy carriers not been focusing on their fighters too much, meaning I'm able to get the strafe here and practically eliminate both fighter squadrons, just mopping up 2 fighters at this point. And once they're out the way, it means I can go back to focusing on defending our ship from whatever comes in terms of bombers. Now with those fighters gone, we've got some bombers coming in most likely, and this is where it's all going to matter. If our Nizao's able to stay alive and take Charlie, or at least stay alive for the next 1.5 minutes, it means the game's ours. If they can't stay alive, then it's game over. But here I personally feel, the most stupidest mistake I could make, and this is a throw. Watch what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on our Pensacola target, and by doing so, I'm throwing away the ability to strafe the enemy bombers. Now I've already thrown my fighters onto the torpedo bombers, thinking that if I just hold them up, that's going to be fine. But one bomber makes it through. And that bomber was enough. And with me being the last ship left on our team, and our team only having one objective to the enemy's two right now, and our Nizel should not be apologising, it's my fault, it means that we cannot regain the win at this point. And it's all because I was too heavily focused on the wrong playing squadron at the wrong time, when I should have been focusing on the bigger picture and the role of my teammates in being able to help win the game. By helping the Nizel, we would have made sure they could have stayed alive, and therefore got them across the finish line, and got our team across the finish line to win rather than lose. And there's not enough time left for me to turn this over now. And really, that is the GG, that is the end of the game. We're just shy of 10 seconds left to spare. And I really do have to apologise to my team on this one, because it's my fault. And 5 seconds left, we go for the manual drop on the Pensacola, but it's too late. Post-game stat time. So in what was a close defeat in the end, we can see that our battle performance amounted to a total damage output of 91,642 HP, and we also downed 62 enemy aircraft, meaning that we're able to pick up the aircraft carrier specific achievement of King of the Air, for destroying at least 55 enemy aircraft in a single battle. Coming on to the team scores, we can see that we topped our team in terms of base experience earned, picking up 1,573, but unfortunately this game left me with a rather sour feeling inside. Simply because on the one hand, this is one of my better carrier games in playing the Ranger to date. It's the first time I ever picked up the King of the Air achievement, and I do feel as though I made a considerable difference in the battle for the air. But in terms of the bigger picture in contributing to the success of our team, I feel that whilst in the first half around the push for Objective Alpha, things went well and I was able to contribute successfully, and also in looking towards Bravo at the start, the attack on the Akatsuki went very well. As the game went into the second half, with the enemy team starting to push out to Charlie, I became too wrapped up in eliminating the enemy shores to realise that the enemy Kaga, the remnant enemy aircraft carrier, was exposed and quite a clear target for my bombers to eliminate. And even if I hadn't have eliminated it, it would have put a lot more pressure on the enemy aircraft carrier player, and if I'd focused on the enemy aircraft rather than trying to deal with enemy ships that were pushing towards Bravo, albeit we were able to take out the Leon and also the New York, it would have really made the difference in the long haul. And if anything, I started to become increasingly selfish, concerned more with my survivability and how me being knocked out would contribute to the loss for our team, rather than thinking about my teammates and keeping them alive, meaning more towards the victory. In coming on to our detailed report, we have one key item to note here, and that is the number of aircraft we lost. Only 27 out of our maximum hangar capacity of 73. This is a positive, because one of the key factors as a carrier player is making your aircraft last the full duration of a game. Something that can be difficult to do, and if a game's going to go the full 20 minutes, you'll need to be able to continually operate and have squadrons available, more so at 4 strength, in order to be able to continuously have that impact on the game. Unfortunately, with our full strength squadrons here, we weren't able to make the considerable impact because we made poor choices time and time again, but at least we had the ability to make that impact if we made the right choices. And finally, coming on to our credits and experience earned, we can see that after additions and deductions, we walked to have 352,049 silver credits and 5,900 commander experience. To conclude, hopefully today I've demonstrated the negative impact a carrier player can have on their team's chances of winning a match when they start to make key mistakes which are repeated time and time again, and these mistakes start to build up on top of one another. In the example gameplay, I made 2 key mistakes I personally feel that I need to learn from. The first was when to use a strafe and when not to use a strafe, meaning that on a number of occasions I exhausted a lot more fighter ammunition than I needed, meaning that my fighters ended up out of position over the course of the game, being on reloads a lot later or sooner than they should have, and therefore not able to assist teammates out. And secondly, more importantly, I was heavily focused in the second half of the game in particular on my own survivability and focusing on targets closest to me and therefore targets of opportunity to me. Not the targets of opportunity to my teammates, and the most important one was the exposed position of the enemy Kaga, and I would have had the opportunity to get them out of the game and completely flip the tables in favour of my teammates. And even when I didn't take out the Kaga, I still had ample time to bring my fighters into position to support my friendly battleships that were exposed to enemy Kaga's torpedo bombers, our Koenig and our Nizel, but I didn't see that opportunity or the importance of that situation in getting my fighters into that position, meaning that when I did get my fighters into position over the Nizel, I then again brought in the first mistake of not using strafes at the right time. I didn't use strafes in this instance to delete the enemy torpedo bombers, meaning that one got through and managed to take out a Nizel and end the game in the favour of the enemy team. And really it left me with a sick feeling in my mouth, and this is a game I really do need to take a lot of lessons from, because otherwise when this happens time and time again, I'm only going to end up counting the cost. and so I've been TX141, and if you have enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future World of Warships videos on my channel. And as always, if you're looking to get into World of Warships today, it's a fantastic game. Be sure to sign up using the link in the description of this video. It's free, so why not? With that, all the best as always, and until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and fair seas.